Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, one of the managers in Thursday's Dodgers White Sox game is a Hall of Fame manager. The other one has the best winning percentage in managerial history. One of them didn't manage like a Hall of Famer, the other one did much better. We're going to talk about some of the managerial decisions of Tony LaRussa and Dave Roberts. Plus, we're going to talk about a few of the Dodgers offensive players who really stepped up to help the Dodgers win this game and the series. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Dodger fans. This is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. You already know that because you're watching or listening right now. So maybe instead, why don't you go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening, and then you'll never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time watching or listening, I am Jeff Snider. My co-host is Vince Samperio, although it's just me today. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. So again, please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening, and let's talk about the Dodgers. The big story in this one isn't even about the Dodgers. It's about the manager of the White Sox. He made a very interesting move on Thursday during the Dodgers had they had already had their big rally to take the lead in the fifth inning, I believe, and then in the sixth inning they extended that lead on a 3-run homer by Max Muncy. But leading up to, I guess, burying the lead, the Dodgers won this game 11-9. It was ugly at times, it was beautiful at times. There was a lot of offense, there was a lot of drama, there was a lot of questionable relief pitching, or get you on the edge of your seat relief pitching. And like I said, there were some managerial decisions. So we're going to jump right in there. Later we'll mention the fact that Tyler Anderson's scoreless streak was broken, et cetera, et cetera. But let's jump in and talk about this Tony LaRussa decision that led to Max Muncy's 3-run homer. 2 outs, Freddie Freeman is on first base, and they have an 0-2 count on Trea Turner. And then ball 1 happens to get past the catcher. Freeman ends up at second base. So it's a 1-2 count on Turner at this point, with Max Muncy on deck and 2 outs. And Tony LaRussa chose to intentionally walk Trea Turner at that point, put him on first base now that the base was open, now that Freeman had moved on to second base. They decided he'd rather have his left-handed pitcher face Max Muncy. Muncy took that personally and hit the ball over the wall. After the previous inning, he had hit a 2-run double. So Muncy ended up with a homer, a double, and 5 RBIs. We're going to talk a little bit about Muncy in the last segment today as one of our key offensive performers. But this decision by LaRussa, questionable at best. And believe it or not, he was asked about it by the media after the game. And I'm going to read you the transcript of this interview. I was going to play the interview for you because there's a lot in Tony LaRussa's tone of voice that really, really gets his point across, that he thinks he's smarter than everybody. All the dummies he has to answer to. But I don't know for sure if I have the legal rights to. And so I don't want to risk getting our YouTube channel shut down or our podcast banned or whatever. So I'm just going to read the transcript. I know I have access to that. So the question from the reporter: can you explain the thought process on the intentional walk with Turner? Answer from LaRussa: so let me ask you a question. Is there some question about whether that was a good move or not? Reporter says, I guess at 1-2 is the question. LaRussa: do you know what he hits against left-handed pitching with 1-0-1 or 2 strikes? Do you know what he hits? Well, do you know what Muncy hits with 2 strikes against left-handed pitching? I mean, is that really a question? Because it was 1-2, Turner with a strike left against a left-hander is something you avoid if you can. We had an open base, and Muncy happened to be the guy up behind him, and that's a better matchup. If somebody disagrees, that's the beauty of this game. Welcome to it. But that wasn't a tough call. And then a different reporter asked, is there a reason for waiting until it was 1-2? LaRussa: huh? Question: was there a reason to not do it right away and wait until 1-2? Answer: that's when the pitch got away. So what LaRussa is saying is, With Freeman on first base, they didn't consider intentionally walking Trea Turner because there wasn't an open base. Once Freeman went to second base on the wild pitch, there was an open base, so they chose to walk Turner. Common thinking among managers. You'll sometimes even have situations where a team won't have a good base stealer steal second because they know that would lead the opposing team to just intentionally walk a guy who the offense doesn't want intentionally walked. So managers do that all the time. But the reasoning here, for one thing, uh, he asks, "Do you know what Trea Turner hits against lefties with two strikes?" I think that's what he's trying to get to. He rambled a little bit. He said what he actually said was, "Do you know what he hits against left-handed pitching with 1-0-1 or two strikes? Do you know what he hits?" I assume what the point he was trying to get was, "Do you know what he hits against left-handed pitching with two strikes?" No, you know who else doesn't know? Tony LaRussa. I promise you, Tony LaRussa does not know the number, what Trea Turner's batting average is against lefties with two strikes. What we do know, here's what we know. I'm going to lay out what we know about Trea Turner, what we know about Max Muncy, and a little bit about what we know about Will Smith, because that comes into play too. So career, Trea is a little bit better against lefties, but pretty darn close to neutral. This year, he's actually slightly better against righties, although it's even closer to neutral than for his career. But he's definitely not a big split guy. And like I said, this year a little bit better against righties. This year with two strikes, he has a 613 OPS. It's better than the league overall, but it's significantly worse than his overall numbers. He also strikes out 39% of the time with two strikes compared to 19% overall. Obviously, that makes sense. You can't strike out in any situation other than with two strikes. And so everybody's strikeout rate is quite a bit higher with two strikes. That's the nature of a strikeout rate. That's the point of having two strikes on a guy. You have a better chance of striking him out. Now, Max Muncy for his career is actually a slightly better hitter against lefties, but pretty close to neutral. Definitely not a guy with a major platoon split. This year, he's been better against righties, but we all know the big story about Max Muncy this year is that he's been pretty bad against everybody. So you could maybe make a case that you'd rather face Muncy with runners on first and second than Trea with just a runner on second. But if you'd rather face Muncy than Trea with a runner on second, wouldn't you also rather face Muncy than Trea with runners on first and second? So if walking Trea after Freeman had already moved to second is a smart move, then walking Trea to move Freeman to second is also a smart move. The only difference is what happens on a single. Because if Trea hits a double, Freeman's scoring for first with two outs anyway. If Muncy hits a double, everybody's scoring anyway. We're talking about singles here. Saying I won't walk Trea Turner to move Freeman to second, but I will walk him once Freeman is already at second, regardless of the count, is the same as saying I like Turner's chances of hitting a single with two strikes more than I like Muncy's chances of getting on base in any fashion. Well, Turner with two strikes this year is hitting 227. Muncy's on base percentage, even in this down year, is 327, 100 points higher than Turner's batting average. And it's 300 against lefties. Now, if Muncy walks, then Will Smith has to come through with bases loaded. Well, Smith has a 395 on base percentage against lefties this year. So what LaRussa decided was, I like my chances of either getting Muncy or holding Muncy to a walk and getting Smith more than I like our chances of getting Trea Turner out on a 1-2 count. Now, like I mentioned yesterday, Trea is in the 38th percentile on chase rate this season. He's bottom third of the league. He chases a ton of pitches. So even if you'd rather face Muncy, just pitch Turner out of the zone. See if you can get him to chase one of the next three pitches. Worst case scenario, he walks like you just had. I guess worst case scenario, your pitcher isn't good at throwing balls out of the strike zone and he comes too close and Turner smacks a double or something. But realistically, it's easy to try to get Trea Turner to chase. Just don't throw the pitch in the strike zone. There's a decent chance he's going to chase it. So, in summary, this was a bad decision. And Tony LaRussa's arrogance to suggest that he's beyond question just made it worse. Like, he should have just come out and said, I went with my gut. I liked our chances against Muncy better. But trying to say, getting arrogant, do you know what Trea Turner hits with two strikes against lefty? No, neither do you. This wasn't a numbers move. This was a gut move. Own it. You're a Hall of Fame manager. You've made gut moves before. If you made a gut move, own your gut move. Don't try to blame the numbers for it because the numbers don't support what you did. All right. That's it for my thoughts on Tony LaRussa. I've been looking forward to this all afternoon, talking about that. I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about the other manager in the game and some decisions he made that were criticized on social media that I think were wrongly criticized because I think he did a pretty darn good job, and I'll explain why. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. As the sun comes out and small businesses are back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people you want to interview faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. We have an important favor to ask you. We've put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcasts even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thank you for your help. All right, I am back. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. It means the world to us. We love talking Dodgers with you, and we love that you all come along for the ride. I love hearing from you on social media and everything. I'm going to make sure to give you all our contact info at the end of the episode so you can reach out to us anytime you want. I spent the first segment talking about a bad managerial decision with even worse justification. I want to talk about what I thought was pretty good managing. In the eighth inning of this game, bottom of the eighth inning, Alex Vesia came in to pitch. At this time, the score was 10-5. And Vesia came in and walked the leadoff hitter on 4 pitches. And, he eventually ended up loading the bases, gave up an infield single to Yasmani Grandal, compounded by an error by Vesia. White Sox score 2 runs, have second and third with nobody out at this point. And I saw somebody on social media. I'm not going to name names. I actually know that this person, it's a person I like and respect, and I know he actually listens to this show. So I'm not going to call him out by name. But I saw him say that it was terrible managing. Robert should have had somebody warming up after the 4-pitch walk and should have pulled Vesia after 3 hitters. This was tweeted during the inning. Vesia ended up getting out of the inning with no more damage, got a few strikeouts, and actually looked like the Alex Vesia that we're excuse me, that we're used to seeing. The kind of Alex Vesia who you might bring in to pitch in that situation when another reliever has created a jam and you need some strikeouts. You might say, you know what, who we call him when we need strikeouts? Alex Vesia. Vesia settled down, became that guy, and got out of the inning. It was very good pitching after that. And now, I wish that I had as much confidence in any part of my life as people do in declaring that Dave Roberts is a terrible manager, and he absolutely made the wrong call. In this case, it seemed pretty clear to me at the time, even before Vesia got out of it, no, he made the right call. Roberts made the right call to stick with Vesia because it's 10-5. You manage differently in a 5-run game. The goal of that game is to win the game, not to keep the White Sox from scoring in the 8th inning. To say that Roberts should have had somebody warming up after the 4-pitch walk to the leadoff hitter, it's ridiculous. They are still 4 batters away from even bringing the tying run to the plate. You give Vesia a chance. And the fact is, when Vesia did turn that into an actual jam, Daniel Hudson did get up and start warming up. But the fact that it's Daniel Hudson tells you a little something too. Hudson got the save the day before. So he had already pitched the day before. You're really trying to avoid Hudson. You'd hate for Hudson to have to go 2 innings. Yency Almonte had pitched 2 straight days. He's unavailable. Phil Bickford's already pitched in this game. We know what we feel about David Price, and his reliability. Basically, Robert's goal was, okay, we've got a 5-run lead. We need to get through these 2 innings with Vesia and Hudson and nobody else, because that's who I trust to protect this lead. And when you're protecting a 5-run lead, you know what? Sometimes you leave a guy out there to wear a couple runs and you hope that he'll figure it out. Yeah. Roberts wouldn't have left Vesia out there to blow the entire lead. But what Roberts hoped was, okay, look, Vesia, yeah, he started off, he couldn't find the zone. But if he can just find the zone, he still has the stuff to get us out of this jam. And he did. You managed the game differently with a 5-run lead. You managed the game differently when your starter didn't make it through the 4th inning. Roberts knows who's available. He knows who he trusts. He knows who's healthy. He knows all these things that we don't know. And I'm not saying just defer to the manager at all times, just assume that he knows more than you do, but at least allow for the possibility that he knows more than you do. And in this case, he doesn't even know more than you do. It was obvious to some of us. Yeah, there's a 5-run lead. You let Vesia get out of the mess that he made. Absolutely. And then the fact is, Daniel Hudson, the guy who they would have brought in to replace Vesia, Hudson had his own troubles in the 9th. He threw 34 pitches to get through and gave up 2 runs himself. This game, Hudson would not have been the answer. Hudson might have thrown gas on the fire. And then would that be Dave Roberts' fault for not leaving Vesia in long enough? Definitely people would have thought so. It's so easy, and I harp on this sometimes. It's so easy to second guess managers. I recognize the irony. I know I spent the first segment of this episode second guessing a manager. I like to think that I laid out my case pretty well for what I objected to about LaRussa's move, and that at least some of my objection was to LaRussa's arrogant attitude of, how can anybody bother to question me? I'm Mr. Tony LaRussa, Hall of Fame manager, only 2 DUIs. How can you question me? I know that DUIs aren't relevant, but it still drives me crazy that Tony LaRussa has been arrested twice for DUI and has not been punished for it. I think potentially killing people is a bad thing. Don't drive drunk. And yeah, that's enough. No follow through on don't drive drunk. Just don't drive drunk. Okay. But yeah, LaRussa's arrogance, I had a problem with, and the fact that he blamed the numbers and the numbers don't back it up. What Dave Roberts did was absolutely defensible, and the constant second guessing and just not even second guessing. It's one thing to say, "Oh, if it was me, I probably would have got somebody up warming up after Vesia walked the first guy. You kind of look like you didn't have it." I still wouldn't agree with it, but at least that's a that if it was me clause. But people jump straight to actually the phrase terrible managing. The Dodgers won the game. Vesia got out of the inning with a 3-run lead that the Dodgers then added another run onto the next inning. Like, if that's terrible managing, and there are people who really believe, and some of you are listening to this show, and I respect you, I like you, I disagree with you. There are people who think Dave Roberts is a terrible manager. And when you point out, well, he has the best winning percentage in managerial history, people say anybody could have done that with this team, this talent, blah, 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 blah. I saw people arguing that Don Mattingly is a better manager than Dave Roberts. I wish Vince was here today so that I could have seen Vince's spit take just now when I said that sentence. Don Mattingly better than Dave Roberts? Yeah, Mattingly was definitely a beneficiary of good Dodger teams. Mattingly did some good things. He's not a terrible manager. He's not better than Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts is a very good manager. There are some flaws. I've criticized Dave Roberts on this show many times. I don't think he's perfect. I don't think any manager is perfect. But the flaw in second guessing managers is there's no way to know what would have happened otherwise. We don't know what would have happened if they had brought Daniel Hudson in after Vesia allowed the first 3 runners to reach base. We don't know. And we'll never know. There's no way to know. We don't know what would have happened if any instance you can think of second guessing manager, we don't know what would have happened. And as I've pointed out many times on this show, most decisions are like 60-40, 60% chance of success over 40% chance. You go with the 60, but even when you make the right, quote unquote, right decision in that case, 40% of the time, it's not going to work. And so that's that's what makes it so easy to second guess managers. And so often it's results based. Bottom line, I would have ranted about Tony LaRussa and his decision to walk Trea Turner in that situation, even if it had worked. Now, if it had worked, he probably wouldn't have been grilled as hard by the reporters, and so he wouldn't have had his arrogant attitude. I still would have thought it was a bonehead decision, but bonehead decisions work sometimes. And that's the point of managing. Sometimes you make the wrong decision. 40% of the time, the wrong decision is going to work. And some people might say, well, that it was the right decision. Nope. Wrong decisions are wrong decisions. Most decisions, though, aren't clearly right or wrong. It's when we say right or wrong, what we mean is you didn't take the one with a slightly better chance of success than the other one. And sometimes if you're playing your gut, play your gut. do it, whatever. But Dave Roberts managed the pitching staff really well, given the cards he was dealt. You go into this game expecting 5 or 6 innings from Tyler Anderson, you get less than 4. And, knowing you have a series with the Giants coming up, and so you don't want to burn out everybody in the bullpen, it's a tough call, a tough situation Roberts was put into, and he got the job done. The bullpen got the job done the way that Dave Roberts deployed them. Doesn't mean it was perfect. Nobody's perfect, but it definitely means it wasn't terrible managing. So I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk about 3 Dodgers hitters who had a big impact on Thursday's game to win the game and win the series. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. And please keep it locked on Dodgers. Our partner today is a product I recently started using every day again. Almost a decade ago, I lost over 100 pounds and was in literally the best shape of my life. And part of my regimen then was Athletic Greens. It was a vital and super helpful part of my healthy lifestyle. As you can tell by watching, I've since let myself go a little bit, but I am trying to get back healthy again. And I'm counting on Athletic Greens to be a very important element of that once again. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all the things. As you know, it can get expensive to buy all the supplements and vitamins your body needs. Athletic Greens cost you less than $3 a day, and it's full of high-quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. It's a ton cheaper than buying all the supplements separately. And to top it off, for every purchase, Athletic Greens donates to organizations helping to get nutritious food to kids in need, including No Kid Hungry here in the U.S. They donated over 1.2 million meals last year. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. I want to talk to you about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, the NHL Hockey Conference Finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I am back, and I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. It means a lot to us, and as you could probably tell, I'm still battling this cold I have, and I have a tickle in my throat, so I'm going to hit the mute button and cough really quick. Join me, won't you? All right. Now that that's over with, let's talk about the Dodgers offense. Dodgers put up 11 runs. They had a 6-run inning and a 4-run inning in this game. The 6-run inning, all 6 runs came with 2 outs. All happened after an error. So actually, all 6 runs were unearned against Dylan Cease, which kind of tells you a little bit about the flaw in unearned runs, just because there's some level. Yeah, they're unearned because they wouldn't have scored if not for the error. But when you give up that many hits after the error, it's like, you didn't do your job. And that's why a lot of statistical websites, some of these advanced stats just count runs scored and not earned runs, because to some extent, a lot of the time, there's a lot that a pitcher can do to limit the damage of an error. And yeah, if a run scores on an error, that's unearned. But, Dylan Cease did not do anything to limit the damage in this situation. But all 6 runs are unearned. And then the 3-run rally, the 3-run homer by Muncy later, that came after a misplay by Jake Berger, who I think actually made the error earlier in the game too. And it was a play. They still got 1 out, so it doesn't count as an error, but that extended that inning too for Muncy to hit his home run that we've talked so much about already. I want to talk about 3 guys. Muncy first. His first game back from the injured list. Obviously, all of us are rooting so hard for him. Muncy is one of those guys. I mentioned this on Twitter. He's one of those guys who I care almost about him personally as I do about the team. And so, I mean, when he got his double and then he got his home run, I was so happy for the Dodgers. I was just as happy for Max Muncy. Look, this is my Max Muncy bobblehead. I keep it right next to me. Were you happy, Max? I sure was, Jeff. That's what my cats sound like too, but apparently that's what my bobbleheads sound like. It was kind of funny. Muncy's two hits were nearly identical. They were 100.2 and 100.4 miles an hour off the bat, 26 and 24-degree launch angles. They traveled 362 and 359 feet, and both had an expected batting average of 670. The only difference was the location. The one was to left center, and it was a double, and the other one was to left field, and it got over the wall. But great to see Muncy, even though he had a couple strikeouts. To see him hit the ball hard in his first game back, that's the issue. That's been the issue with Muncy this year. He hasn't been hitting the ball hard, hasn't been driving the ball. I'll take it. Even if he starts striking out more than he has in the past, if Muncy will start driving the ball, that's huge. I've mentioned before, the best version of this Dodgers team has Max Muncy being productive in the middle of the lineup. And so seeing that on this day, for him to drive in 5 runs in his very first game back, it's huge. It's going to do huge things for his confidence. He's going to struggle. There's still going to be issues, but it does huge things for him, and it probably does huge things for the confidence that fans have in him. Another guy who had a big impact on the game was Freddie Freeman. I mentioned on yesterday's episode that Freeman was going to break out. He's been struggling. Well, he had 3 hits, including a huge 2-out double with bases loaded to score the first 2 runs of the game for the Dodgers to kickstart that 5-run rally or 6-run rally in the 5th inning. But yeah, Freeman gets 3 hits, hit a couple of them pretty hard. He earned those hits. They were good hits. Freddie Freeman's a really good hitter, and you're not going to keep him down for very long. So the fact that he's been struggling for a couple of weeks, like I said yesterday, if anything, that excites me because that means there's good stuff coming. And we started to see that on Thursday. Freeman in 3 hits was huge. And then Gavin Lux. It's the first 4-hit game of his career. And 3 of the hits he earned by hitting it really well. The expected batting averages on 3 of his hits were 830, 950, and 550. 2 sure hits and 1 pretty darn sure hit. And then the 4th one, he earned by being fast and by busting out of the box. It was an infield single, and Gavin Lux ground ball to first base, and he beats the throw from the first baseman to the pitcher covering the bag. That is just a hustle single. That's the kind of hit that only a guy like Gavin Lux is going to get. Being left-handed and being very fast, he's that much closer to the bag. Even Trea Turner, who's a little faster than Gavin Lux, maybe doesn't beat that out. He beat out an infield single during that earlier rally, but that's one that Gavin Lux is one of the few guys who's going to beat that out. But it was great to see. Great for Lux's confidence. On base 5 times, he also had a walk. Just dynamite from him from the 8th spot. He usually bats 9th. He was batting 8th because Austin Barnes was in the lineup. But they're at the bottom of the lineup. That production to set the table for the big guys at the top of the lineup, it's huge. And so for me, obviously Freddie Freeman is going to have his confidence. You're not so worried about Freddie Freeman's confidence, even though, he's human too. And any slump is going to wear on him a little bit, but I'm not as worried about him. But Muncy and Lux, one of the things that makes me most happy about the performances is what it's going to do for their confidence, because both of them needed that. Lux has been hitting pretty well lately, ever since Justin Turner helped him with some tweaks to his approach at the plate. But he's a young guy. He's had his ups and downs. The confidence is going to do wonders for him. It's definitely going to do wonders for Max Muncy, and that bodes well for this team going into this series against the Giants. I would love to see the Dodgers just pound the Giants this weekend. They won't be facing Logan Webb. He pitched on Thursday. Actually took the loss, I think, in the Giants game, so that's fun. But they will be facing some solid pitching, and hopefully this Dodgers offense can continue to roll. We saw last year the Dodgers against some of the Giants' good pitching. Dodgers didn't have a problem with Anthony DeSclafani. They handled Kevin Gausman all right last year. Really, Logan Webb was the only guy who gave them major troubles last year. But they're going to, obviously Carlos Rodon is really good, and the Dodgers didn't do great against him the first time. But hopefully the Dodgers can go into this, carry this momentum, and at least win the series. Obviously, I'm hoping for a sweep, and I'm hoping for a sweep of blowouts, but I'll take what I can get. Anyway, that's going to do it for today. There was a lot that happened in this game on Thursday, a ton to talk about that I didn't even get to talk about. I really never did get to Tyler Anderson. His first clunker in a while, had his scoreless inning streak stopped at like 27 innings, I think. But luckily for him, the Dodgers continued to score runs like they often do in his starts, and they got him off the hook. Brusdar Graterol came in to stop the bleeding, and hit the first batter he faced to drive it a run. But kind of, bases loaded, nobody out. He only allowed 2 of the runs to score, which we'll take as a win. And he ends up getting the victory for his troubles because the Dodgers took the lead while he was the pitcher of record. So, they got the job done. A lot that we didn't get to talk about, but that's the beauty of baseball. We're not here to recap games. We're here to talk about the important stuff, like the fact that a team still employs 800-year-old man as a manager, and he manages like an 800-year-old man sometimes. So that's going to do it. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, check out the Locked On MLB podcast, where MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully, brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. If you're not watching or listening every day, we would love if you would add 1 or 2 days a month to your rotation. If you have friends or family who love the Dodgers as much as you do, please tell them about the show. Maybe they'll like it too. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at Vince Samperio. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and the DMs are open in all of those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or you can leave us a voicemail or shoot us a text anytime you want at 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you on Monday.